If you are grieving the loss of loved ones at this time, know that their identity was shed, and as such, their body perhaps was shed with them. Who you were with them is what it is that you are actually grieving. The version of yourself that was with them, that loved them, that created memory experience with them. That is the grief that you are experiencing. And so at this time, for the development of human consciousness, grief is something that is enabling, awakening humans to shed aspects of their self, to release versions of their identity so that more life can begin to burgeon from within you. So if a loved one has transitioned and you are feeling grief, give thanks, because those who have transitioned have taken a version of yourself with them so that more of you may arise in the space that is created.
Well, hello, Rebecca Dawson. Welcome to the show. I'm truly honored by you joining me and looking forward to our conversation. How are you feeling today?
I'm pretty good, thanks, Brad. It's a gorgeous morning here on the West Coast and ready to start the day with a conversation with you.
Oh, beautiful. You're on the West Coast also. Yeah, I'm in the San Jose area.
Oh, okay. I'm down in Santa Barbara at the moment.
Ah, yeah. Very beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, great. Well, I can tell you, every week we bring you powerful stories about life after death, awakening, and what it means to be human. And if that resonates, you'll love what's coming. Because today I'm joined by Rebecca Dawson, a channel teacher and author who's been bringing through a collective known as the Masters since she was 18. Now, their core message, you're not a problem to fix, you are consciousness expressing itself. Rebecca began as a very left-brain architecture student who happened to see energy around people and talk with unseen friends. Now, at 18, a tarot reading cracked her open and her awareness shifted. Her voice changed and a stream of wisdom spoke through her while she watched from behind herself. Now, years of overwhelm and solitude eventually led to a profound unity experience in Bali, where the sense of Rebecca disappeared and she experienced herself as everything. Now, today she channels the Masters on identity, unity consciousness, and the massive shift unfolding on our earthly plane. We're going to explore her journey and what the Masters are saying about this moment on Earth and how we can begin to live as if we really are divine consciousness in human form. Rebecca, thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. What a wonderful introduction. I appreciate that.
Well, you were a wonderful guest with a wonderful story, so I thought it was due. Well, yeah, I like to do the research ahead of time and really get to know the guest, watch a lot of your other video and look at your materials and really kind of summarize and get the audience ready for this amazing experience, you know? And I think what's interesting this time, a lot of times we'll do NDE experiences or OBE experiences in that. But today, you know, you have a very unique experience, as I mentioned in the intro, which happened when you're 18 and it really changed everything in your life. And in that, you're now connected in a way that so many other people are not. And I think that is very, very unique and amazing. And so that, I think today would be great if we can go back in time, in the time machine, back to when you were 18, you know, when this huge shift happened in your life and sort of explain that story. And then I think later we're going to get into some great conversation and pull even more out of this and maybe even channel the Masters. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me. Sounds like another day in the life.
Another day in the life. Beautiful. Well, thanks, Rebecca. And I'll hand the stage and the microphone over to you for that amazing story.
Thank you. Well, it's always challenging to tell a story because I feel that the more that we evolve and expand in our own consciousness, the differently we see ourselves. And so the different we start to see the future differently and we start to see the past differently. So I'll do my very best to share my experience from where I'm sitting right now. So I always had an interest in what we would call, I guess, the metaphysical or the great mystery in life. And when I was quite young, instead of going out to play, you know, at lunchtime at school, I would go into the library and I was in Catholic school, so we had a very, very small section of the unexplained phenomena that was on a shelf. And that's what I was really attracted to and drawn to. So I would be looking at all these books on unexplained mysteries and phenomena, and and that really led me into a great interest in metaphysics at quite a young age. So I started my first meditation classes when I was about 9, I think, and I really wanted to delve into the mystery. And I really felt that what was on offer that could explain what the kinds of things that I could sense and feel and remember, it just wasn't on offer outside of myself. So at a very young age, I think I decided that I needed to go within myself, that the answers weren't out there, that I needed to learn how to access them myself. So I guess a precursor to that, that was around, I guess, the age 9 or 10, I started to do that, was that when I was a young child, I never really forgot other experiences or lives that I had had before. So it was very strange to me, for example, that I was female. I remembered myself to be a man in several different versions. I had a great sense of memory for the Middle East and Egypt. And equally, I had a very clear understanding of how to map out certain Atlantean cities and different technologies that I was frustrated didn't exist when I was a child, in the 70s. And and so all of this didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So that led me into, as I suggested, an interest in metaphysics and eventually mysticism, and tried the best that I could to have a normal, under the radar kind of life. Learned very young not to talk about these things with other people, especially with other kids. That didn't go down so well when I tried that a couple of times. So yeah, I just learned how to almost have two different lives. A life where I was doing everything conventionally, was a pretty high achiever at school, and then the life where I practiced these other things that were far more of interest to me. And that kind of those worlds kind of collided, and that split really came into a point of convergence about the age of 18, where I found an ancient Egyptian tarot card deck in a little dusty store tucked down an alleyway somewhere in Perth, in Australia, and I took them home. And the reason I was attracted to them was not because I wanted to learn how to do tarot reading, but because the symbology and the imagery in these cards just felt so familiar. So I started playing with them, and then I think it was like the second or third go that I had trying to do this spread. I felt this huge expansion of energy around my body and my head, and it was like my awareness got moved behind me. And then all of a sudden, a different voice came through and started speaking about the person that was sitting in front of me, their other lives, and why things were happening the way that they were happening for them, and what they needed to know. And that was really the beginning of a whole new adventure into, what does this mean? And what is this about? And what am I doing? And what is my life supposed to be from this point?
18 in Perth. And so Australia, got it. That's where you're from.
Yes.
And this experience happened. So you've had all these other experiences when you were younger, which didn't seem to be consistent with the other children that you knew. So
Right.
you kind of kept those to yourself. So when this one happened, did you share this with anyone? Parents, any friends?
Well, I was with family when it was happening. So it was actually my sister that was sitting in front of me. She'd been through a big breakup and had moved home. She was older than me. And it was all very exciting, I guess, for family that, oh, wow, this is happening. There was some awareness of what channeling was, because we knew another channeler in Perth who I had become friends with earlier to try and understand more about metaphysics and mysticism. So I had an awareness that, oh, this is channeling what's happening. And I was very grateful because I had a very supportive family. I was able to be open with them, and some friends, family friends, I would say, who were also into, more of the unknown and the mystery. But other than that, no, I kept it very quiet. I did find it very difficult to continue with university at that point, because when that happened, that first channeling experience, it completely blew all of my senses open, and I didn't really have conscious control over what state of consciousness I was in. So it would happen in any moment. I had no sense of being able to discern even what is real that's happening in front of me in this moment and what is an overlay of thought or a different perspective that might not necessarily be apparent or obvious to everybody else that's sitting here in the room. It also blew open my senses to the extent that it was very difficult to be in crowded places like shopping malls, or when you're 18 and at that point you like to go out to pubs and see bands and things like that. I think that was when grunge was in, so that was a big that was a big field of interest for my age group at that time. And that was very difficult because I could see everybody's energy fields, and I could just feel into the blueprints of so many people in the room simultaneously, what all their potentials and possibilities were, what had happened to them in their childhoods. It was sensory overload. And so I got to the point where, sitting in the back of a lecture theatre, I was picking up on so many things that were happening for people. It was just too much for me. And so I decided to take some time off, and which you could do. And I went traveling. I went to Europe, and I lived in England for a couple of years in an attempt to try and find a teacher and figure out who could help me and how I could learn how to manage all of this. And that was the beginning of me really starting to say, well, I can't just pretend that this doesn't exist. I can't do the separate lives thing anymore.
No, I wouldn't imagine. Now, I know a comment that you made earlier was that you said you were a child in the 70s. And so, of course, that must have been in a prior life because you're way too young for that.
Well, there's something to be said about channeling and sitting in a state of timelessness. I think that our body takes cues from how we feel, and our sense of vitality from how we feel. And I feel the more that we get into memory and the more we get into emotion, the body takes its cues from that also. So, I think I look different on different days depending on where my awareness is.
Probably the same for most.
Yes.
Well, I really like what you said about the very first time this happened, your sister was there to witness it.
Right.
So maybe you could we're going to talk in detail about how it sort of affects you now and how you're helping yourself and others. But the very first time when this just happened to you, you didn't ask for it. It came to you and it came out and your sister witnessed it. When it was sort of done and over, like what was it that was said? What sort of wisdom? And when it was done and over, how did you both sort of reflect on it?
Interesting question. I don't think anyone's asked me that before. Thank you. Well, it was really, I think she was a little bit in shock and awe, but the wisdom that came through was so direct and so authoritative that there wasn't really anything for her to do other than to be completely engaged with it when it was happening. And you really do discover that with the vibration and the nature of what I've come to know as the masters that come through. It's undeniable. And it's not just undeniable because of the concepts or the wisdom that's shared. There's something about a vibrational match that happens. And you shift into this vibrational gear, and there's a part of your consciousness as the listener that's there. And you're in it too. And in that way, it's not so much that something's being delivered and something's being received, but more that there's two people and there's two aspects of their consciousness that are joining and creating that experience in that moment.
Do you remember the message that came through? Was it relevant to the both of you in that moment, or was it just worldly advice?
Well, it wasn't relevant to me, but it was deeply personal to my sister, because it explained exactly why what was happening, what it meant for her, what the shifting consciousness that was available around that experience was, and how best to move forward from that place.
So this is probably how she knew that it was very real.
Right.
Because she just said, that hit me directly
Right.
and uniquely. And so that was good. And you said you had experience with the notion of channeling before. And now, okay, so you're channeling, this message comes out and she says, well, that was like a home run. It hit me perfectly. And it's exactly what I needed to hear. But then as soon as she said, thank you for that, she must have turned around and said, you're a channel.
Well, I feel that really, yeah, I guess it's like, oh, wow, you can do this. And so let's play with this a little bit more. So then, there was a little bit of practice that was going on just with family, and close family friends, not anyone that I saw socially. Let's test this out. I want to ask a question about this, or what can you tell me about this? And that was interesting because that helped me sort of, I guess, practice. But I didn't really refine channeling until some years after that. But it was, oh, this is like a little treasure trove now. However, what I come to discover very, very quickly is that the capacity to bring wisdom in this way is not necessarily something that we want to make available just because people can ask questions and just because the answers might be there. And so what I learned in those few years after I turned 18 is that I shouldn't be so available. Because what happens is if you're so available for that wisdom is that people stop trying to figure out their own stuff. And when wisdom is on tap, it's not empowering for people.
Got it. So you had to regulate it a little bit.
Right. And so actually, and I have a great love and adoration for my family and close friends, but I don't channel for them.
Oh, well, and I wonder if that is the same for yourself. Do you also have to regulate it? Like if you have questions and need information?
Well, it's a little bit different, and any channeler will tell you that it's one thing to offer wisdom to somebody else because there's no vested interest, and the less you know, the better. And so that's why always with perfect strangers, it's super clear wisdom because we don't know anything about them. But when it comes to the closer you get to home, the closer you get to your own sense of identity, the harder it is to be unfiltered.
I see. Got it. Well, and you've got years of experience. It started at 18 and you're 29 now. So that's been 11 years.
Bless you.
So with all that wisdom, can you explain the term unity consciousness?
Yes. So unity consciousness, and actually that was not something that I even had an awareness of, because when I first started learning about metaphysics and learning about meditation and channeling, the whole concept around this is there's you as a human, and then there's this other wisdom or this other body of consciousness or something outside of you that comes in. And that inherently there's this hierarchical notion of wisdom or even of vibration that we work our way up to a point where everything's available. And we could say, well, we do that vibrationally, we do that through, spiritual initiations, when we're a good enough person, maybe when we've cleared karma. And what I realized in my own deep inquiry and deep contemplation practices is that once you really drop into the truth of who we are as beings, we are in essence source consciousness in appearance and in action. If you're willing to drop underneath the veneer of personal and individual identity, you can access a state of awareness or a place within yourself, however you want to say it, a state of awareness where you are everything and everything is you. And it's an elusive experience for many. And it's really, I guess, what people might call a state of illumination. To me, sometimes that's still imbued with a sense of hierarchy. But it's in essence a state of consciousness that we can drop into and that humans can drop into where everything's available. And really, that's where even channeling, as we've come to know it, is becoming redundant.
So the notion of channeling and the connection that you have and the access to that information and it coming through you is a little different than the notion of unity consciousness, where you are everything and you have everything already. And so why would you need to channel if you have unity consciousness, right?
Right. And I'm so glad we're speaking about this. I think it's really important. And I think actually a lot of other channelers are starting to move more into this way of presenting channeling, because it really empowers humanity and speaks to sovereignty a little bit more than what we've known. So when I first started channeling a long time ago now, there was this idea, that there are things that know more than us, that are higher consciousness than us, that somehow can come in if you raise your vibration enough. And through all my experience, I guess, in the past 30 years or so, I've realized that actually it's not a question of something coming from outside into you. It's a question of how deeply you can drop into that center within yourself so that something can come out of you. And that way of shifting my perspective and thinking has enabled me to become a much better channeler. It's enabled me to slip in and out of a channeling state with ease. There's nothing I really have to do to access it. I just kind of relax in a little bit. But it's shifted my perspective in such a way that I now see myself, like Rebecca, as an identity that's kind of the veneer or the very tip of something much greater, a greater body of consciousness. So I like to describe it a little bit like a cosmic tree, or, the tree of life. And Rebecca is like a leaf or a fruit at the end of the tree. And if I lean back into myself or deepen into meditation or contemplation, I now see myself or feel myself to be perhaps a collection of twigs on a branch. And that's when we start to go, oh, I had this other life, or I was this in a past life, or I'm this when I leave my body and sleep at night. And we start to become aware of these other selves.
How often are you the leaf, Rebecca? And then how often do you slip back into the branches and maybe all the way back into the trunk of the tree to see everything?
In and out all the time. In and out all the time. And that's the practice of real breathing, I think that's what a lot of breath practice is really about, is I'm exhaling into the world. I'm Rebecca in this moment while I'm checking out at the supermarket, but perhaps when I'm wheeling the trolley back to my car, I'm leaning back a little bit and I'm seeing life in action. So because of that view, the deeper you go into the tree, the more branches you can move out into and view. And this is how you can begin as a channel or any human can really begin to access the wealth of wisdom that's available to us, that is already sitting in our consciousness, but we just have to be willing to lean back a little bit. And the masters say this a lot, lean back. Don't move forward into life so much, lean back a little bit. Because when you lean back, you have a wider perspective. You can start to see more and access more.
So leaning back as opposed to leaning forward, it's kind of like going within as opposed to looking outside for something. So how would a person do this? Now, I know there's another thing that's called past life regression. Mm-hmm. So you can go in with a hypnotherapist and you get deep and in a relaxed state, right. And they can kind of guide you into that, and you can access other memories, potentially. That might be what's happening. That is someone helping you do that. Is that similar to this? And are you doing something similar, although you can do it on your own, or is it very different?
No, it is something quite similar to that. And what's interesting is that when you lean back, because when you're in when you're in a different state of consciousness, like when you do hypnotherapy, you are literally leaning back into, your awareness is leaning back into a different part of your brain. And so you have a different view. You're widening the aperture of your camera, your lens, so now you can see more. And in that state, there isn't time, which is why you can access those past lives, which are actually concurrent, simultaneous branches on the same tree, because that in that state of timelessness, there is no past lives. They're just multiple versions of yourself that you're experiencing simultaneously. And in channeling, that's exactly what we're doing. We're leaning back and we're having that simultaneous multidimensional view, which is why we can see exactly where where this has come from, this situation. We can see exactly what the potentials are. We can, the whole map is there.
Yeah, I love what you just said there, because oftentimes people refer to it as past lives and so on and so on. But I have also heard what you'd said, which is it's all happening right now. So you're not really accessing a historical record of something. You're accessing another version of you that's happening at the moment.
Right.
And maybe that's the way it feels. But you can still learn and reflect and pull in value from that for sure.
Absolutely, because this is all about giving that multidimensional view to our mind construct so that we can see more clearly within this third dimensional view. And in many ways, that's the shift of consciousness that humanity is having. It's having a clearer view of life. And we do that when we start to access a wider view of what life really is. And that happens within the field of our own consciousness.
It kind of feels like we manifest in this physical form with a pretty heavy veil, between us and who we really are. And then it seems like part of the exercise is to realize it's sort of there and start to peek through it. And like you said, sort of lean back and get a better perspective, which you might be able to see through the veil in some areas now, which is better. And it kind of feels like in this particular earthly experience we're having, there are powers that be that don't want you to do that, because they sort of like to influence and control a lot of people that are here. They don't want you to lean back and to know these things. And yet, what feels like is happening now, there's more folks like yourself and maybe this podcast that are sharing these notions with people, sometimes for the first time, and many times, they've heard this many times, and they just like to continue to hear it so that they know that they have an opportunity. They can lean back. They can see through the veil. They can realize that they're more than they truly are. And it kind of feels like that's the evolution of where we are.
Absolutely. Because when I listen to what you've just said, and I feel that you explained that very beautifully, the underpinning of that whole view of life is that what we need is out there, and it's locked up in a matrix that we need to access. We have to donate energy to it consistently to keep it running. And everything that we need is provided by that construct or that structure. But in reality, it's our consciousness and our vitality and energy that's enabling that construct to even exist. So humanity are in many ways the living gods, or the life form that enables everything to continue to run in our reality. Our perception creates the reality. So one of the fundamental shifts in awareness that I feel that's happening for many people is that what we're looking for is not provided outside of ourselves. What we're looking for, that construct or what you call the matrix, doesn't have. So if we realize that all of the information, all of the wisdom, all of the knowledge is actually sitting within our own field of consciousness, and we stop leaning into that matrix and donating energy to it, and we start leaning back into ourselves, we can actually start to create completely new lives.
Yeah, I love that. And that doesn't mean isolating ourselves. We should still have a wonderful, vibrant community and relationships and so forth. But the notion of quieting yourself and going inside and finding this is beautiful. I love this. So we could really focus on this for a while. Based on that and then your experiences, I have like 2 questions here. How did you use all this information to help yourself, first of all, and your physical manifestation that's here, 1, and number 2, then how do you turn that around and help all those that come to you, help them? Because it's very different for someone that doesn't have your knowing, your insight, because of your channeled connection and your experience there. And you can turn that inward and benefit it from in so many ways because you have a knowing. Other people on the outside, they have sort of what you might call a believing, because they hear folks like yourself and they want to have those experiences, but you can help them too. So yourself and others.
Yeah, what a great question. Thank you. So this is interesting, because growing up, looking at metaphysics and looking at notions of spiritual hierarchy, I used to think that the more I was channeling and the more I was bringing through this kind of wisdom, I shouldn't be having the regular human experiences. I shouldn't be having upsets. I shouldn't get angry. I shouldn't grieve necessarily when someone dies, because my understanding when I grew up was that the more conscious you become, the less you have those experiences. What I've come to understand is that that's not actually true. And instead, the power of being human is being the paradox. And the paradox is where duality meets. And so, in being a channeler and living that paradoxical life, I both have the benefit of being able to access great views of perspective.
Yeah, and from that, I think you're realizing that the human experience is essential. It isn't to be avoided.
Yes, and I equally have the emotional experiences, waves of anxiety or tension, loads of drama that happens around me that I used to think meant that I wasn't doing something right. And what I've come to realize is that ascension, the descension is what's happening. Descension is how we like to look at ascension. This is bringing more consciousness than ever before into the human form. And as such, we're becoming embodied more than ever before. So for myself personally, what I've come to discover is that I need to be able to have those kinds of experiences so that when we are bringing different perspectives to our seminars or workshops or retreats or so on, that I actually have experience and know what it feels like to be going through these experiences.
And I would imagine then in these workshops, that's your advice to everyone else. Don't hide from these experiences. Have them. Let them wash over you. Don't suffer needlessly and endlessly with them, but don't avoid them either.
Exactly. And to include them in what you're expanding into, include them in your evolution. Because so much of what we have learned, particularly through this matrix of belief we've been in, is that if something's not aligning, let's get rid of it. And this is somewhat contentious still, because there's a lot of people that talk about releasing and getting rid of things, detoxifying. But the more you sink into that wealth of truth within yourself, the more you realize actually we don't need to get rid of anything. We want to include it and bring it back to love and unity within ourselves to transform it. Because we don't want to give any energy away. We really just want to be in totality and be complete. We're so used to donating energy because we believe that we can reach capacity. We're full, we're containers, instead of let's bring everything back home to the source and regenerate. And that's where we start to see ourselves as toroidal fields of energy rather than containers or vessels. That's problematic in my view.
Ah, that's good. That's good, because toroidal is a flow.
Right.
It sort of comes and it goes, but as it comes, it's processed. So if you're having a contentious, sort of experience, don't put it in a container and have it be a problem for you forever, but let it flow through you, process it fully. And when you've truly processed it fully, you can probably turn it back into love again and then move on.
So when we were just speaking about, when you're feeling a bit of anxiety, for example, I woke up this morning feeling a little bit tense and a little bit anxious about things. It's very easy to say, well, what is happening in my memory? What can I relate this to that I'm feeling this way? Because that's what the mind does. It's tried to say there's this feeling or this vibration that's existing. Let's try and make sense of it. And once we've made sense of it, as you suggested, then we can own it, and then it's our problem to solve. And then it kind of recycles around. It can get quite difficult to do anything with at that point. So what I encourage people to really feel into at this time is if you're feeling a particular emotion and you're not immediately sure why you're feeling it, or it seems to be something that you just wake up with in the moment, it's really wise for us to start to see that we are existing within a collective field, and the more awakened that you're becoming, the more you're noticing the collective weather. And so you begin to say, oh, well, I'm sensing that there's a lot of anxiety today. And this is where you start to notice that you're more like a barometer for the collective human experience now, rather than someone that's personally processing something. And this really enables, as you suggested, Brad, that things to just wash through. And now, oh, I wonder what the collective field's feeling now. And so you can start to have a great sense for what humanity's experiencing. And so that brings our compassion online. And you just start to see it as weather. It's this today, it could be something else tomorrow. And this is a really important state of awareness for us to start to get into as a collective, because not only does it enable us to have a lot more empathy for what people may be feeling and understanding, it enables us to personalize less, therefore try to solve the problem of less, whatever it is that we're sensing that's going on. And that's that movement now towards unity consciousness and really starting to feel more in attunement with what we're feeling in resonance with the weather, rather than what am I personally enjoying or not enjoying.
Very nice. Now, I think we all have an app that tells us the weather. So if we want to know, we get it right down to the degrees and how much rain's coming. But it's not so easy in the world of emotions, because they come and they go. They might be thoughts, they might be emotions, they might be feelings, they might be intuitions. There's all this sort of stuff that's swirling around. It kind of feels like we need to somehow tune in to the relevant, kind of the signal from the noise, and to find those signals and make sure you don't miss those signals. So any advice to folks on tuning the intuition?
Well, what we would say is that the emotion or the sense that you're feeling before you know what it is, before the mind kicks in to reference it to you and catalog it like, oh, it's from this memory in the library of your life. When you feel it first, we're sensorial beings. We're incredibly attuned. When we feel it first, it's collective weather. So that's the first thing, is when there's not necessarily an explanation for it right away. Why am I feeling this? And the fact that you have that sensorial capacity, it's actually your superpower, because what it means is that you're actually now starting to feel a little bit more of what's going on in the world. And once you feel a little bit more what's going on in the collective field, then you have a choice to act in a state of sovereignty. Well, this is the weather, but this is how I'm going to choose to feel in this moment. And that's where we really start to create and generate new fields. We'd start to generate new weather.
You can do closed loop feedback there, because as you do have those experiences and then you respond to them and then you sort of evaluate how that went, and you'll have more experiences respond to those and continue to tune that, what's working well for you and what maybe is not, and where the signal is and maybe where the noise is, like we said before. So I guess tuning that is something that we all have an opportunity to do, as long as we're consciously focused on that and not just distracted by all the crazy little things that are happening in the world. And maybe that's why, so coming back inside and finding silence, quiet time, each day allows you to sort of focus on that, as that's essential, I think, for everyone's sort of quality of experience.
Yeah. And I think a really important question to ask is, what do I sense, rather than what is this? Because as soon as we start to assign thought or rationale or logic or a memory reference to what we're sensing, now we're in that feedback loop of, oh, maybe now we're trying to solve a problem. Maybe now there's something wrong with me. Maybe now there's a problem in my environment or in the world. So if we can distill it down to pure sense, oh, this is what I'm sensing. Oh, this is a funny, strange, uncomfortable feeling. Like I woke up feeling a bit anxious this morning. Oh, that's there. Be very careful. Don't try and assign it to anything. It's there because this could be happening today. It's there because something's wrong. It's there because I have a traumatic memory about something. It's there because. That's when you get into that problem-solving loop. And that's where it becomes very difficult to to allow it just to be weather.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can't change the weather. Well, others might be able to, but we can't necessarily. So, what's interesting here is you said something about the fact is you take it personal. You focus on the me part of it all the time. It almost feels like when that's weather is coming, if you're able to lean back and have a more broader perspective on just you personally and what's happening, and this attack is on me or whatever, and to try to broaden it out a little bit and maybe even take a third party perspective on what's happening, even if it's between you and someone else. You're witnessing it as opposed to, experiencing it, kind of digging in and defending yourself and being personal inside it. If you can lean back and take a broader perspective and be more objective about it, the way you process it and your ultimate response to it might be a little cleaner as well.
And if we go back to that, that symbol of the cosmic tree and the identity, that the thing that gets rattled, right? The thing that gets shaken around a little bit, that's the leaf on the end of the tree. And if a breeze comes along or some weather comes along, the leaf is really worried. My existence is at stake here. I'm shaking to the core. I could be swept away. I could be destroyed. Anything could happen to me. But if you lean back, the tree is just like, it's just a breeze.
That's right. I have a peach tree in the backyard, and its leaves are going because it's fall time. A lot of folks are in the fall right now. They'll have their leaves falling down. So, but the tree isn't worried. The tree is going to be there, right through winter and come back and come back really strong. So to lean back, get a broader perspective is amazing. So a lot of this wisdom has come to you through your connection as you channel the masters. Did you think that is something that you'd like to do today?
Sure. Let's see what emerges. I'm always open because for me, I always discover something new. So,
well, explain the process of what you'd like to do here.
So really, I'll just drop in. I think because I've been doing this for so long, it's not really a process. It's just a very quick shift in perspective. And so you'll hear my voice change a little bit. My mannerisms will be a little bit different because I'm going deeper into the tree. I'm accessing a different part of the tree that we're going to be operating and viewing from. And then we just share our view from that part of the tree. So it can be very conversational. You can ask any questions you like, and we can either start with something or you can start with a question.
Oh, I do have a few questions set up, but I'd love if you would open up with a message that you'd like to share or the masters would like to share.
So I'll just take a moment and drop in. Greetings to you, we are with you. The extraordinary notion of freedom is something that is very clear in the hearts and the minds of humans at this time. And even as we speak to you, Blessed One, we can see that this notion of freedom is at the forefront of your field of interest at this time. Indeed, many of the conversations that you have provoked or you have invited are in essence imbued within this notion of freedom. How can the human experience more of itself? Because freedom in essence is not about escaping what it is that you are in. It is the freedom to discover more, to know more, the freedom to ask the questions and the freedom to discover the answers. It is not about where you are or where you would like to be. It is, in essence, about how explorative you can enable yourself to be, because humans in and of themselves are designed to be explorative, creative beings. And if you are not given the opportunity to ask the questions, one can never know how much is possible.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And speaking of questions, I do have a question, and that is, so many people today feel anxious, afraid, or overwhelmed by world events. From your perspective, what is actually happening underneath the chaos, and how can we move through it with more grace?
It's important for humans to remember that what they view within their reality is indicative of change. And what humans don't necessarily enjoy is change that they believe they are not in control of. And this experience for humanity at this time is one of great change. But the greatest change that is occurring is the change within. And the change within the hearts and minds of the human often is invoked in a sense of disconnect between what you believe yourself to be and how you feel and what you believe is happening in your reality. This sense of disconnect is not the ultimate state of awareness for humans, for eventually humanity will remember that it is connected and at one with all things. But the experience of disconnect at this time is disconnect from a paradigm of belief that no longer feels constructive. And this is important because the human notion of constructive is shifting. Humans will often say, well, this is constructive because it's building something beyond myself that's bigger and better and stronger. The sense of disconnect that's happening with externalized sense of construction is it because externalized construction is no longer assisting the internal state of wisdom and awareness within the human to feel bigger and better and stronger. And that is because humans are beginning to sense their power in something that is far more advanced than what the mind has been able to offer. When we say the mind ego. So the exterior constructs, bigger, better, stronger, could somehow embolden the interior construct of the mind and the ego, bigger, bolder, stronger. But there is something emerging within the very hearts of the human that is even more powerful. And because it is that is awakening, the externalized forms of construct are not adequate to begin to echo, to begin to resonate with what is emerging from within the consciousness of humanity. And so this period of disconnect that is happening is in essence a disconnect from the symbiosis between the mind, ego, and the external constructs, so that the internal state of heart-centered consciousness can now begin to develop new constructs for reality. And so it is, in many ways, mass disillusionment. But it is only disillusionment from the mind. The heart is very clear. And the heart is saying, this is not adequate for what it is that we wish to express. This does not represent who it is that we know ourselves to be. And so this is a period that is a dawning of a consciousness for humanity that will generate naturally new systems. And these are systems of resonance, not linear hierarchy, where humans now begin to create that which feels more like themselves, rather than create that which I think is bigger, better, and stronger. And yes, equally, the thought and mental constructs and systems of humanity appear to be less reliable. Humans are beginning to rely less upon their thought constructs and rely more on how they really feel. Yes, where logic is no longer adequate, but a great sense of self within is more powerful. I don't know why I want this, but this is what I feel. I don't know why I'm going here or speaking to this person, but this is what I feel. And that is the beginning of generating a new world, a new mapping of reality. This is how we choose to answer your question.
Very nice. Thank you. That's a beautiful answer. I can definitely resonate with that. And I love to live life that way, is to be open to the experiences I'm having. So thank you. I have one more question for you, if I may. And that is, a lot of my audience has experienced grief, loss, or even near-death experiences. So what is actually happening at the soul level in these moments? And how can we relate to them in a more empowered way?
Well, just as this one has been discussing on this day, It is the sense of yourself at the very tip of the cosmic tree that experiences loss. Because when a leaf next to you drops away, they are gone. The loss is there. And yet when you relax more into the totality of your wisdom, you realize that a new leaf will begin to emerge to replace the old one. And so we say to all of those who are noticing leaves shedding all around themselves, and even you may be feeling that your leaf is about to drop. Remember that this is all about regeneration. That this is about making way for new vitality, new life, new identity, new form. And if you are grieving the loss of loved ones at this time, know that their identity was shed. And as such, their body perhaps was shed with them. Who you were with them is what it is that you are actually grieving. The version of yourself that was with them, that loved them, that created memory experience with them. That is the grief that you are experiencing. And so at this time, for the development of human consciousness, grief is something that is enabling, awakening humans to shed aspects of their self, to release versions of their identity so that more life can begin to burgeon from within you. So if a loved one has transitioned and you are feeling grief, give thanks, because those who have transitioned have taken a version of yourself with them so that more of you may arise in the space that is created.
Very nice. Why, thank you so much, Rebecca and the Masters.
It is our great joy to be with you. Life is always the answer. Thank you. Great questions.
Thanks, Rebecca. Now, guess what? I have some questions just set up specifically for you. It's a little section that I have, and it's called Heart's First Whisper. And so in that, I ask you some questions that I figured out ahead of time just for you. And, you kind of use your heart, not your mind or your thoughts to answer. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Beautiful. Well, okay, here's the first one for you, Rebecca. When you drop beneath the story of Rebecca into pure awareness, what does your heart know most clearly about who you really are?
Oh, that I am not something that needs to try to be anything. I already just am.
Beautiful. Well, that's the key, is I am for sure. And number two, after your unity experience in Bali, how did your heart's definition of God or source change?
I had a real palpable experience that it is the energy in everything. There's one being that has a billion different fingers, trillions of different fingers. And I experience myself as both the tip of the finger and the being with all of the fingers. It was beautiful. No separation.
No separation. I got it. That's key. And that is a beautiful perspective. Well, number three, you often speak about dying into identity. What does your heart feel just before an old identity dies? And what helps you let it go? Beautiful. Well, based on experience doing this several times, you've got it tuned now, tuned well. Well, thank you. And number 4, in this time of shifting systems and structures, what gives your heart the most genuine sense of trust or excitement about humanity's future?
What a great question. The masters have come through many, many times and stated quite clearly that humanity cannot be destroyed. And one of the biggest misconceptions in our matrix of belief is that humanity can be destroyed. And they say that we're one of the most transformative species that exists. And therefore, it is our identities that perhaps will be destroyed, what we think we are. But we have the capacity to continually evolve. That to me is exciting.
That's very exciting. And it kind of feels like there will be leaves that do fall off the tree, but new leaves will grow and the tree will never be entirely bare.
Never be destroyed.
Exactly. Well, hey, number 5, in the quiet moments of your day, not on stage and not in session, how does your heart personally experience the masters or unity consciousness?
Wow, what a beautiful question. It's spontaneous moments. I think I experience the masters and unity consciousness in spontaneous moments. That's my cue. That's the doorway. Because that's when I know I'm not thinking. When I'm thinking, I'm in this 3D view. So it can be something very simple, like suddenly a hummingbird flies through the backyard, or suddenly a tea towel drops onto the floor unexpectedly, or suddenly a leaf drops onto my foot. And in those moments, it's the magic of life in action. So it's spontaneous moments that grab my attention and bring me back into the now moment. And I just feel this relief. Relief from time. Relief from thinking.
Yes, I love that. I mean, it happens to everyone all the time. And I think most people just move along. They don't really connect the dots or notice it, but there is just always something that just happens, like you just said, the leaf falling on your foot or the hummingbird flying by or the butterfly and whatever. And to stop for a moment and know that there are no accidents, that there's so many maybe subtle messages that come from the other side, spirit guides or whatever, to help sort of tune us, influence us, nudge us back onto our path, or just get us to bring our attention back to the now. In fact, like you said, are there so often throughout the day.
Doorways to the infinite. They're there all the time. We just don't see them for what they are.
Well, we all need to pay better attention, I'd say. Number 6, when you look at someone who feels small, afraid, or not enough, what does your heart most want to whisper to them?
You are a living embodiment of source consciousness. You are everything. You are a living God.
Wow. Those are the words they need to hear for sure. And then over time, they need to start believing those words and then sort of echoing those themselves inside for sure. The impact would be amazing. Well, number 7 is, if this were the last time you could speak publicly, what single truth from your heart would you most want to leave with those who are listening?
The greatest honor and privilege is being in the state of the not knowing. Because the power is always in the question, never in the answer.
So do not be afraid of the not knowing. And don't struggle with the fact that you need to actually know the answer, but spend more time on formulating the question and let it out into the universe.
Yes, exactly.
Beautiful. Rebecca, this has been the most amazing podcast for sure. Thank you. Is there any way you would like to kind of summarize or deliver sort of a last insightful message to the viewers?
I think it's very important to have hope for humanity. And if you can have hope and a great love for humanity, then you can have hope and a great love for yourself. I think that's the most important thing we forget in all of these exercises about self-improvement and what we can do to become more consciousness. If we really have hope for humanity, then those acts are acts of joy. We're wanting to become more consciousness because we're joyful, because we can, not because we're desperately trying to save a species. I think that's important, to bring joy back into it.
Bring joy for sure. And I think based on what you said, it's almost like when folks feel like the power has been taken away and someone else is entirely in control, that they're in despair. Mm-hmm. They don't have hope. So bring yourself back inside. Realize who you really are. Have the notion and the knowing and even beyond the hope that everything is ultimately going to turn out okay, and you'll have that power and that confidence inside that you won't look for it anywhere else. And then you'll have that love, that love for those around you, and certainly the love for yourself.
Beautifully expressed. Thank you. We're going to be okay.
Yes, I think that's it. That's the bumper sticker, right? Right there on the back of the car.
We're going to be okay.
Beautiful. Well, Rebecca, thank you for being here today and for opening a window into both your very human journey and the perspectives of the masters. It's one thing to talk about unity consciousness and identity death as concepts, but it's another to hear how you actually lived through overwhelm, doubt, and years of searching and came out with a deeper, gentler understanding of who we truly are. And by the way, before we close, I'd love for you to share how folks can connect with you, because they really want to connect and get more help from you.
Thank you. Well, I have a website. It's just my name, super simple, RebeccaDawson.com. And there's lots of free material on there that you can explore. We have a lot of seminars and courses and retreats and workshops we run, and also have a YouTube channel, so you can connect to that through the website as well. Thank you, Brad.
Well, thank you. And you got to tell the viewers that go down into the description down below and you'll see those links. You'll see the link to her website and the link to her YouTube channel, but it's all on her website. So go to RebeccaDawson.com for sure. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Brad. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
Pleasure was mine. Thank you. Hey, and to our listeners, if Rebecca's story moved you, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And let us know in the comments. I get in there and answer every single comment. And if this episode spoke to your heart, share it with someone who might need a little light today. And until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and go beyond the illusion to discover your true self. Take care, everyone, and bye for now.
Wow, you are a pro. Great conversation. Thank you. I loved your questions. And I have to say, I've done a lot of podcasts over the years. I really felt the heart in your questions and what you do. And that's really
thank you.
unusual. So thank you.